I'd like to call the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners Workshop for Tuesday, September 13th to order. I'd like to welcome everybody here this morning. We'll begin the meeting with the invocation given by Commissioner Larry Harvey, and Commissioner Turner will lead us in the pledge. Please stand if you're able.
Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for today, a day we've never experienced in our life before. Let us make an impact in people's lives today for the positive. Let us move Putnam County and move them forward today, move our county forward. Let us have good intentions. Let us have right motives. Father, guard our minds today. And Lord, just let us get wisdom directly from your throne room as we go into deliberations today. Father, we thank you for our staff. We thank you for our great county. And we thank you for the work that's been done so far. And Lord, we just pray in Jesus' name that you will take care of us. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey and Commissioner Turner. We'll move down to the first item of business, and I'll open up for public comment on agenda items. Any individuals wishing to make public comment on agenda items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to the Port Authority Workshop. I'll recess the Board of County Commissioners meeting and then convene the Port Authority Workshop. First item of business, public comment on Port Authority items. Any individuals wishing to make public comment on Port Authority items? Okay, seeing none, we'll move down to general discussion on Port Authority items. Commissioner, any items you want to discuss? Seeing none, staff, you made comments this morning. Okay, seeing none, I'll adjourn the Putnam County Port Authority Workshop and reconvene the board workshop. We'll move down to item A with administration, fiscal year 2022-23 proposed fee schedule. Julianne?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. In accordance with board policy, it's recommended that the Board of County Commissioners update the county's user fee and charges annually. These charges are set to go into effect on October 1st, 2022 with the creation of our new fiscal year for 23. The summary of the changes are reflected in a red-lined version of the ordinance for you today in workshop. The only changes being requested are, of course, the sanitation portion where we update the fee schedule to reflect the adopted solid waste fees. And then the building department has updated the building valuation table. The current fee schedule incorporates building valuation table from 2017. What's proposed is a reflection to update it to the 2021 building valuation data. That is the extent of the changes being recommended by staff.
Okay. All right, thank you, Julianne. I'll start with questions. Commissioner Turner?
Yes, really the only increase that we had was the building stuff, correct? The building permit fees.
That's correct, and that's based on the valuation table data only. The fees themselves, no other fee increase was proposed.
Okay. I was told just before the meeting that these proposed fees came out of International Building Code. Is that right, John? Or?
Johnny, we'll go ahead and come up front. There's probably a number of questions.
So it's my understanding these are like the recommended fees that come from the bodies that recommend this.
Yes, sir. It came from the ICC, International Code Council, which writes the building code. ICC tries to do the best to try to do across the board in all municipalities, whether they be a county of rural economic concern or not, or whatever. I think Putnam County, being a county of rural economic concern, doesn't need to take the full-blown ICC recommendations to advance the cost of the building permit in Putnam County. So, you know, I just wanted to state that as my opinion, but I just think it wouldn't put Putnam County in a real difficult situation to just keep the fee structure we have currently for another year, and see what happens with it, to the economy. We have inflation that's going crazy, we have interest rates that are going up, we have the things that, I don't know that we need to put another barrier this time with additional building, construction fees also, but that's just my opinion. I wanted to bring it up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
Well, thank you, Mr. Turner, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are kind of the comments I would have had too, or do have. I know it's hard to take that little book and see things in the future, but, you know, also even looking around the surrounding counties, I would like to, I think we're right on the brink. If we can hang on another year, we're going to see some good things happening, but I'll defer to you. I mean, at the end of the day, you're the one in charge of that, and, you know, but I just, right now, I don't want people in our community subsidizing for someone else either. So I understand that that's taking.
Well, we've deferred this since 2017, and our services are not covered by the fees. We don't do a percentage of job costs like our surrounding counties. Our whole fee schedule is based off the ICC, so it's actually the lesser of the two evils. We don't do job costs. Clay County does. Their fees are significantly higher. Ours are based off the construction data. That's where these fees come from.
So they do it on percentages,
Yeah,
and they have
most
impact,
of them do. Yeah.
and they have impact fees too.
But our roofing permit fees, no other fees are changing, just our valuation data for the commercial project.
Okay. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Turner?
I'm not upside down here, and I'm not going to fall on my sword here. I'm not. I'm just wanted to bring this up for discussion to the board to make sure that we don't just nonchalantly, without any discussion whatsoever, start raising fees around here, or taxes, or anything else that may happen. So I don't really have a tremendous amount of heartburn with this or whatever. I just didn't want it to go through without any discussion whatsoever. I don't think that's what we're sitting up here for.
Right.
So, like I said, I don't have tremendous heartburn with that, and I did notice where they plugged the new landfill fees in the other page, and it was actually a decrease to help offset some of this. So, yeah, it's gonna make a construction permit cost a little more, but this table that I'm looking at, if I'm right, Mr. Cialti, is that, it basically says what we're gonna value a square foot of construction at, is that correct? And then we're gonna use our valuation off of that construction? I mean, that's not the actual, we don't charge for a residential, let's just pick one. Second page, residential 3, 1 and 2 family homes went up significantly to $192. That would be $192 what? $192 per house, per square foot, per structure? What would that $192 be?
Well, most of the houses are unlimited VB construction for residential. So there's a multiplier, and you take a multiplier by the square foot times this number here, and that's where the fee gets generated from.
Okay,
So R3 VB is 150.87. The multiplier.
That would be the permit, the new permit fee would be $157 versus, tell me what it would have been on your old do you have the old one above?
I do, yeah. So the one from 2017 is 116.15.
So we basically went up $45 on a permit fee is what you're telling me, because the other fees associated with it, like fire review, none of that's gone up, right? Only thing that went up is
the only part of our fee
multiplier.
schedule is our table.
That's the multiplier. So
multiplier.
basically, we made for a new house, we went up $45.
Well, I don't know if that would work out 100% on the math. It's square footage time there's a whole nother table that we got to do with a percentage number that goes for a residential home, and then you key in the multiplying
Do you
factor.
have an idea of about what it would go up on a single-family residence?
I can get it calculated for you and let you know.
Well, I don't know that we have that time, and I apologize for not bringing this to you before today. We had multiple things on this morning and this afternoon's
Right.
agenda that I've spent hours in meetings with staff on, so like I said, I don't really have a lot of heartburn with this. I don't think we're talking about enough money to where building a new house is gonna deter anybody
I don't think
from
so
going
either.
and building a new house. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
'Cause this is only one part of a permit.
Your
You have
roofing-
this multiplier, and then you have the other things that go on there that are not changing, such as,
Your roof permit's still residential's $84. That has not
well, I
changed.
mean, on a house though, I mean, you still have other things like you have an inspection fee for the plan and a plan inspection fee review, and then you have a fire marshal fee.
Right.
None of that's changing.
Correct, but you also understand this, Commissioners, we don't charge per trade. This number incorporates plumbing, mechanical, structural, all of it is inclusive. So we don't have a job cost multiplier, and we don't charge for the trades. This includes all the trades on one permit.
I'm good, John. I just
Okay.
wanted it on TV.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mr.
Okay. Now, John, when you said this hadn't been updated since 2017, I know we have updated some of the other fees, correct?
I don't think we've touched our building fees. We made some Scribner errors that were when it was passed, but other than that, we have not updated the fees since I've been here.
Okay, you said at this point it doesn't cover your costs.
It does.
Okay. All right. Okay, Commissioner Harvey, you had your light on?
I did, but I think my questions got answered. I know my questions got answered. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
We've got a proper motion and a proper second, proper motion by Commissioner Turner and a proper second by Commissioner Adamsack to approve the fee schedule. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It passes. Okay, we'll move down to item B, Clerk of Court, Investment Management, PFM Asset Management.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just set the stage real quick, give a little bit of background information about the board and the investments of county funds and whatnot. So obviously, the Board of County Commissioners has oversight over the funds of the county. The county, the board has adopted an investment policy that determines how those funds, those excess funds, how the clerk and comptroller can invest those funds to make returns on that money. So the county already does have an investment policy in place. What we'll be talking about today is potentially having a firm come on board and help with the oversight and management of the investment of the county's excess, well, really all funds, looking at different strategies in order to take those funds that the county will have in reserve for much longer periods of time, say longer than a year, and look at investing those in things that will get us a higher interest rate on those investments. But that's all I'll kind of give background-wise. I'll have Scott and Sean come up and give more information about PFM as a company and what services they would be able to help with. Sure.
Excuse me, a couple of questions. Commissioner Turner?
Okay, I have several questions, if you don't mind me asking, Matt, and I don't know, some of these may have to come from CFM. First of all, I want to state that I believe in this kind of service. We worked with them at the bank, we worked with them at the fund when we had the $38 million a year that we had to invest in the fund when I was trustee there. So I'm just telling you, I believe in these kind of services. I know that they'll do us a lot of good. With that being said, how did we find this particular firm? Is it somebody recommended? Did you go out for an RFQ? Because there's hundreds of these firms. So I know several myself personally. So
Yes,
I
sir.
guess
We've
with
talked
one-
about that.
Yeah, right. I was just wondering, how did you end up finding these gentlemen?
So I've been talking with other clerks and comptrollers throughout the state and what entities that they use to assist them, and PFM was the overwhelming name that kept coming up. And if you'll remember, when I was deputy county administrator just several years ago, Jeremy Needfeld is here. He came in and we discussed the potential of doing some debt issuance, bond issuance, because PFM also does the loan side, the debt side assistance as well. But today, we've just got Scott and Sean in regards to the investments.
All right. So did you have just this presentation from them, or did you reach out to anybody else? Or you just did it because other clerks have used them and you got a really good recommendation from them?
I did. I reached out directly to them, and I looked at other counties, how they structured their contractual agreements with the entities. Some clerks entered into contracts directly with the entities. Other counties, the board actually entered into the contract with the entity. So I didn't want to just, take action, even though I think I could have, to enter into an agreement with them. I wanted to bring them to the board today so that we could discuss. But after, yes, Commissioner Turner, after doing a lot of.
And I know we've talked about this for 6 months now.
Yes, sir.
or
Yep.
About trying to get somebody for that. But, what is the fee? I'm assuming the fee structure will be part of your presentation, so I'll skip that one until we hear your presentation. Can't read my own writing, that's pitiful, isn't it? Who buys and sells the investment instruments? In other words, do they make the because it works both ways. Do they make the recommendations and then they tell a dedicated person at your office that we want to buy such and such bond or buy such and such investment instrument, and then y'all actually do the switching and swapping? It doesn't really go through them, but you use a separate broker that and they usually have a list of brokers that they recommend, and you can pick the one that you have the best rapport with, or the cheapest, or however you end up your criteria. So is that kind of how this works too, in a roundabout
That'll be in the presentation, correct, Scott? You'll touch on that?
Speak to that.
Yep, okay.
Okay, so that's good. I noticed that if this was accepted, that the reports that y'all gave us at the end of periodically throughout the year, do they actually include things like what would have happened if we'd have left it alone versus what happened because we did this? Because I think that would be good public information, because I'm convinced you'll probably rip up what you're already doing, or I'd really believe that. So, like I said, this isn't my first rodeo on this type of thing. So, I would like to see if we could include that in the reports if we end up going this way. And I don't think the county has an audit committee or an investment committee, and I know that it said on here, or as part of this presentation, are you looking at trying to put something like that together? Because it doesn't really come to us. It's more of something that you would put together as clerk, isn't it?
That's correct. So other counties have different structures. The board, obviously, it is the board's funds, but under statutory duties, it is the clerk and comptroller's duty to oversee how those funds are invested according to the investment policy that the board sets.
I don't mean to put you on the spot. That wasn't my purpose.
Right.
I just know that we don't have either one of those committees.
So some counties have formed an investment committee that kind of oversees the reports that you were just talking about, but the investment committee itself, really the only function that it would have would be to oversee the investment policy, to see if there were any policy changes that need to be made. The investment committee wouldn't necessarily be the entity that is overseeing PFM directly and, okay, what changes or what movements of money, because that is solely up to the clerk and comptroller. So I have to operate within the.
Come under you though, don't they? I mean,
Correct.
that's basically
Yep.
the purview by statute for the
Yes,
clerk.
that's right.
So if you're gonna do something like that, then you would do it basically within the clerk's office or whatever the case may
Right.
be, an investment committee.
But I want to be sure that whatever I'm doing, the board is fully,
I understand. I'm
is
not
fully
even saying
transparent and
anything
everything.
about
So
that, so.
we could, but it would just, I think it would be an intermediate step kind of to you guys as the board.
Not saying that you do, I'm just saying,
Right.
making the point, we don't have
Okay.
one. So basically, let's say, for instance, just for the basis of this conversation, that you hire these gentlemen and they come back and do the reporting. They're gonna do it to you, I'm assuming, or you or your administrative, I don't I'm sorry, Logan, I don't know what your official title is, but,
Chief Admin Officer.
okay, your admin officer or somebody and that you designate, and so, basically, then you would just review that and maybe once or twice a year let the board know how we're doing and if it's working out or whatever the case may be.
Absolutely, we can do that, and something that I haven't mentioned to the board as well, but I hope to have a draft of it soon, within this month, because I really want to try to get it out next month. It's a report called the Popular Annual Financial Report. It's kind of like our comprehensive annual financial report, the big thick one that you guys get every year, and there's a lot of numbers and everything in it. But the PAFR, the Popular Annual Financial Report, the guidelines for it keep it to, I think it's 20 pages, and one of the pages is a summary on investments. And it shows you how the investments have done from year to year, and it kind of gives you a background on that. So that report will be a very good update for the board as well as citizens in the county. So it could either be, we can include that information, but I'm sure the reports that will come directly from PFM will be a lot more detailed and have a lot more information in it if anybody wanted to see them.
Okay, one last question, and I'll be done for now, until they make their review. How long would this be for? Let's say that I don't think it's gonna be up to the board to hire them. I think this is more of a complimentary thing that you're doing today, which I appreciate, I really do. But let's say that you go on and decide to hire them, or if you want us to and we do, whatever the case may be. How long are these services for? Is it like for a year at the time? See how it works out, give them some notice? Is it annually ongoing unless we stop it? How would this work out? Maybe that's part of their presentation if you don't know.
Sure, and I think you'll touch on that a little bit, Scott, because we've discussed that internally, but we can discuss that with the board as well.
That's all I really had. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, sir. Mr. Reynolds, my question is going to be more to I like to walk in the room and see the cake sitting on the table, and then I anticipate eating the cake. You must be realizing in your mind that there's going to be a return here. And I'm with Commissioner Turner. I serve on a number of boards that this is done all the time. It's done professionally and it's done right. And I applaud you for that. So are you looking at, I hate to put words in your mouth, but you must be looking at a higher rate of return than what we're currently getting, right?
We would sure live in hope.
Yeah, and their presentation will touch on it, but the summary of it really is, if you think about how much the county has in reserves right now, just the base 10%, because the county tries not to dip lower than 10% of your annual budget. If you just took the 10% and looked at putting it in a 2-year CD instead of the overnight type of investment we have it in now, that's at least 1%, 1.5% that more that we would gain, and that's several $1 million. So it could be just a slight change like that. But we'll talk. PFM can talk more in depth because they really get into more of managing cash flow and all of that as well to really maximize how much we could make.
The only thing that concerns me, and I'll tell you right going into it, we need to be liquid in some cases. So, we have storms that come, and I remember when I first got here, we borrowed from the sanitation fund to handle hurricanes and stuff, and I don't want to go back to those days. Our previous board, this board's worked very hard all of us, staff and everybody's worked hard to get those numbers up, and I kind of like it right now where the fact of if a department needs something, they can come to us and ask for it, and it's there. I don't want to be so tied up in investments that we can't get to it if we need to.
Absolutely.
But by the same token, if I may,
Yeah.
by the same token, we've got 20 million plus in the sanitation fund that's basically restricted.
Right.
And if we could invest that in real solid investment interest, I'm not saying we play the stock market or bond or I'm just saying real solid financial investment interest instruments, then we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that we can use as revenues to further reduce other fees that we're charging on there, such as your assessment fee. That's just in the landfill, much less
That general fund and the other funds.
that we ought to be able to make off the monies that we have invested. So, I'm real high on this, and Matt and I have talked about it for quite some time. I'm glad that he was move forward with it, I really am, but if, that's all I had at this time,
I'm
Mr.
done, Mr. Chairman. Thank
No
you.
more questions? Okay. Scott and Sean, correct? Welcome.
Correct.
And there'll be more questions after your
Right.
presentation, I'm
Great.
sure.
You've asked some very good ones already, and we'll try to be certain we address them. So just by way of introduction, my name is Scott Stitcher. Got my teammate here, Sean Gannon. We both work out of the Orlando offices, so we are local. A little more about PFM Asset Management. So we actually manage money for 13 counties in the state of Florida. And Sean and I are kind of kicking ourselves because we were looking at a map before the meeting started, and we realized that we manage money for every county that surrounds Putnam. They're our clients of ours. So we're considering Volusia as a good benchmark for you all. So to answer one of your questions, that the term that we have with Volusia County is a 3-year engagement with the ability to extend for a 1 3-year term, so 6 years in total. So it would be a long-term engagement, okay, is the thought process. A question was asked about fees as well. Our fee is paid by our clients. That's the only thing we receive is what is paid to us by our clients. It's typically based on a sliding scale on the assets under management. In this case, the first $50 million would be billed at 7 basis points, 0.07%, or a portfolio of $50,000, that would equate to $35,000 annually. Again, what did I say, $50 million
I knew where you
portfolio.
were-
Thank you.
Yeah.
I already
My
did
fact
the math.
checker here.
I did the math already.
Okay, $50 million portfolio at 7 basis points would be $35,000 annually.
And we fit within that.
You would, and based on the numbers that have been provided to us, you'd be right around that number. Again, and that's the only fee we earn. There's no arrangement with broker-dealers that you mentioned earlier. There's no soft dollar arrangements. It's the hard fee that we earn based on the assets under management. We're going to talk about what else comes with that $35,000. There's more to it than just managing the money. The relationship would be, at least as we understand it, we would be responsible for buying and selling the securities in the portfolio. We have relationships with about 60 broker-dealers nationwide. And when we do a trade on behalf of the county, we shop that trade with our broker-dealer relationships. Some are better at buying treasuries, some are better at buying corporates, so we know which broker-dealer is best to interact with when we're doing a trade. But we shop that purchase or sell on your behalf and get multiple bids, and again, transact with the one that's most beneficial for the county, okay? So again, hopefully, Commissioner Turner, I think that may address a few of your questions, fee, how the relationship would work, that sort of thing. I think it's important to note too, Commissioner Harvey, building on your analogy a little bit about cake, that I just want to say there's no free cake though, right? So the goal at the end of the day is definitely to increase returns, or the potential to increase returns. And Sean's going to talk a little bit about how we look at your money and kind of try to get to that place where we can maximize the return for the county, okay? Am I forgetting anything? The initial questions?
Just one thing about the contract also. So I know you mentioned 3 years with a 3-year extension. There is language in there, should you not be pleased with how we're performing, you can terminate, I think after the first year. There's a 30-day lag or a grace period after the first year. After that, it's immediate, so we're not locked in necessarily.
Right. Right. So to that point, and that's a great point, I think one of the more important features of what we do, we're held to a fiduciary standard to act on your behalf, and we also build in a benchmark so that you also have some sort of proxy for how we are performing on your behalf. to help you in that decision. We also like to think of this as a long-term relationship or long-term investment. So we hope we're not judged by a one-month window. We would think more broadly than that because markets are dynamic and ever evolving.
Are all the if I may, Mr. Chairman, are all the counties around us basically on the same duration?
So I don't work with all of them. Unfortunately, I don't know exactly. Go ahead.
Yeah, so a typical government portfolio is going to be in 100% bond type securities or shorter into like a money market fund, which is also investment bonds. But so by looking at St. Johns County, their strategy, I believe, is a 1 to 5 year strategy. So it's bonds really bought, like it sounds, within the 1 to 5 year window. But I would say the most common is a 1 to 3 year strategy because it's a little bit more liquid. Everything's a little bit shorter and matures more quickly.
That actually answers my next question, which is I'm very against anything of a duration past 5 years because that ties up liquidity like Commissioner Harvey brought up a minute ago. So if we can keep our duration 5 years or shorter, that will really tremendously help in our liquidity on them.
A 1 to 3 has a duration of 1.8 years.
Right.
And a 1 to 5 is 2.6.
Yeah. So our policies, we typically write in a duration of 3 years or less. Quite honestly,
Yeah, I'm a
that's
short
a little
guy.
more conservative
I mean,
than 5.
I really am. So,
5 years. So.
And I really like the idea that y'all use brokers to trade out a house because then there's no even look of impropriety that you're just, that takes all that out of the loop. You bid it out to whoever's the best and the cheapest in that particular day. So that's real impressive too. The ones that I've dealt with before, some of them have actually had that person in-house that actually did the trades. And the investment advisors would just tell them what to do and what to bid, what to buy on such a date for what percentage and what have you. But I see no problem at all with y'all doing it as long as you're using outside brokerages.
Yes.
So I think I'm done with that one, Mr. Chairman.
I was just going to add that we actually even share that information on the trade ticket with you all. You'll see the broker-dealers that we've gone out and shopped that trade with and what they offered. And so, again, it's a very transparent process. You'll have all that information.
I imagine that's something Logan will keep her eye on, I would imagine. That way we can say, if she messes up, we can do like this right here. She's not paying attention.
She ain't paying a bit of attention.
She's listening.
Not a bit of attention whatsoever, no.
Trying to ignore you, hoping you go.
Matt, I think this is, if I may, Mr. Chairman, Matt, I think this is a tremendous step in the right direction. I truly do. I want to applaud you for it. Like I said, we've been talking about it for quite some time, and making it go there, I think, is a wonderful thing. What do you want from us? You want a motion saying we support this decision? Or just
So.
an attaboy for you from us?
No.
What do you want?
When, like I mentioned earlier, when we looked into the contractual relationships between PFM and the other entities, the closest one that we found was Volusia County, and their contract is directly with the board. And that contract was publicly bid through a public RFP. So, and those rates that we quoted earlier are the same rates that Volusia County currently pays under their contract. So that's why I brought it to the board.
I don't have an issue at all. Mr. Chairman, I'm just trying not to take your meeting over. I'll apologize. Call me, slam me down if you need to with your gavel. All right, you saw it at the last meeting when I was out of line, don't you remember?
So the contract would be with the board.
I think I would prefer, this commissioner would prefer to say, thank you by consensus, let you go on and do what you need to do, because it is your department I think, and it is your purview. And like I said, I applaud you for doing this.
All right.
I think this is a great thing, and I think that the contract should be through you, and that way if something goes on, Logan can deal with them, or you or whoever can deal with them and make this make things go as smoothly as possible, because there is going to be a little learning curve here. I don't think it's going to be near as steep with these guys doing their own trades with brokers, but they're gonna handle the trade for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're gonna reach out and seek approval, and it won't take long, and she'll know pretty much, well, we might not need to be that tied up or something. She'll, you know, it won't take long, and plus with them helping you, so I think we just need to, by consensus, just say, yes, Matt, thank you
All right.
for bringing this to us. I really appreciate it. I'm on board with you. Go do what you think you need to do.
Can I ask a couple questions before we get to that
I'm
point?
sorry.
All right. He asked about the duration, so he says 1 to 3. I guess the surrounding counties, some, you know, may be doing a little better than us financially. How do you approach a county such as Putnam County when, and I'm not criticizing anybody in here, you service everybody around us, but probably didn't even know where we were, right? So how do you service a county such as Putnam County, which is very rural, has had our economic challenges over the years, but are making strides to come out of that? That's a fair question, I hope.
We used to come visit Logan at Lunches of the City, so we're familiar.
Okay.
Can you see the presentation slide we're on?
They can through on their computer,
Yeah,
on their computer screens.
So,
Can you pull the microphone up?
It's not on.
sorry.
Mine's not on.
Oh, your
Better?
computer screen's not on?
Not on.
And some of our screen, we've had a lightning problem around here lately, and we didn't even have,
It worked for me.
microphones.
Oh, it's in your book.
Okay.
It's in the agenda.
I got it. That's fine.
Okay, so on slide 4 of that presentation, and I'll talk through it too, you don't have to be looking right at it, but, you know, while you are a county and similar to counties in the fact that you know, the services you provide, et cetera, everybody is different. And on slide 4, we show our 10-step implementation process, and that's really kind of almost like a research project where us and staff and whoever is involved go through and dig through all the financials of the county, the policies, any type of governing, you know, policies really to look at everything from brick 1, and then build out a best practices type of investment program. So, you know, we're not going to invest a single dollar until we look at your cash inflows and outflows, your investment policy, and how you'd like to receive reporting. All that kind of stuff comes first, and then once we've established that groundwork, we will begin our investments.
Okay, and then the contact person, is it going to be Logan, you, both of you?
If the contract will be through my office, it'll be me directly, yes, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Harvey?
Mr. Clerk, I think this is a wonderful project, and I really do. I'm with Commissioner Turner. I think this is your thing. You're the comptroller, you're the clerk, and this is your baby, and this commissioner supports you and thanks you for bringing this to us. So thank you.
So we just need wave of support, Administrator Suggs? That's all, no motion or anything?
Before I just wave, I just want to say, Matt, I think this is a home run, brother. I really think it is. I think
so
this is
too.
going to be a big feather. It will be, I guarantee you.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. Compared to what we're doing now, playing overnight rate markets without any financial instruments being involved whatsoever, this is going to be tremendous. So I am in support of it, obviously, and want to thank you for bringing it to us, but I also believe it needs to go from you straight to them.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Painful, was it? Welcome to God's country.
You'll know where we are from now on, won't you?
Okay, all right, that's all the workshop items. We'll move down to Commissioner requests. Item A, Commissioner Adams Act, Lee Conley House support.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to, based on the letter that we got from Ms. Lurie, talk about potentially funding her the $10,000 out of the county budget. And I guess in understanding from talking with the attorney and staff, you know, part of the reason we didn't was because we didn't have a return for it, something that was measurable and that stuff. So through talking to Ms. Lurie, basically the idea would be she'd have to document to us back what work she's doing that benefits the community in the county. And we were looking at $100 per room night, so that would equivalent out to 100 room nights for the year at $100 a piece, or would end up being the $10,000. So that gives us that measurable that we talked about that we needed to have to justify it. And I'd like to propose that we move forward with funding that $10,000 based on $100 per room night on her occupancy. She'll justify that to us quarterly, Lori, would that be doable? And go from there, and I don't know if it'd be better, I guess I'll ask the attorney, would it be better if we did do this to fund it upfront or on a quarterly basis in a return?
That part doesn't matter to me. You would also make the comment that even though you were looking at the $100 per bed night, that the expectation is the money would serve so much more.
Yeah, right, because that money also goes towards the food that they get, the room night, the counseling, all the other stuff. It just was a measurable that we could use that's not super abstract, I guess is the best way to put it. So I want to bring that up to the board and see what your opinions were. Miss Lori is here if you want to ask her questions. I'm not 100% aware of everything you do there.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Commissioner Adamsack. Commissioner Turner?
Yes, I have a question for staff when we used to give money to Lee Conley every year because of the service they do for the community and what have you, and we all know what it is. So, and we kind of had to quit at one time because we felt like, or at some point, somebody felt like we needed an MOU of some kind to offset to be able to give money to these. So with that being said, I guess would the agreement that Commissioner Adamsack just outlaid, would that meet that level that we need to have some kind of an agreement that they're providing services for the residents of the county? Would that meet that level that we need to? Okay. Well, I don't want everybody to pass out in the room if me and Mr. Adamsack are on the same page.
First time for everything.
Make a motion.
I was going to say, if you weren't, we have disagreed for the third or fourth time in 6 years. So, all right, Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a problem with this, and I appreciate Commissioner Adamsack bringing the measurable return back to us. I think that's important to justify in the community. There are people out there in the community that don't want government taxpayer money going to nonprofits. We heard a lot of that. We heard from some people on some boards that were requesting money. They didn't want that to take place. But this is a little different service, and it's a valuable service. And I'm just wondering, and I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, wouldn't this be better served through maybe the Sheriff's Department or something like that, where we make a pot of money and it can go through them? I don't know how the women come to you, and I guess that's the question I'm going to have. Do they turn themselves in? Do they get guidance from the Sheriff's Department? Is it a?
Ms. Lori, if you'll come to the podium.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. And I
Go
probably,
ahead, state your name and address for the record, and then we'll go forward.
Slavin, 106 Roberts Boulevard, Satsuma, Florida.
Mr. Chairman, if it's possible, I want to tell you a story. My wife and I were out one night eating dinner, and a lady was in trouble. Her husband was mad at her. She was intoxicated because she was so upset, but she was afraid that her husband was going to beat her up. And I'm not kidding you, it got pretty serious. A call was made to Lee Conley. They had a caseworker show up there within 15 minutes. Showed up at that place and took that lady and settled her down and took her to Lee Conley that night because she was in dire need and trouble. I've always been a fan of Lee Conley House. I really have. It's just that we need to figure out a way to do it where they're not wrapped up in all nonprofits everywhere and whatever, because there are different ones. This has never been aimed at them from me.
No, I agree.
I'm a fan. I'm telling you, I'm a fan. So
I agree that our service is a little different in that if we didn't provide these services, it would create a huge burden on what I would assume would be the Sheriff's Department. That's what's happened in the past in transporting to another county. But to answer your question, Commissioner Harvey, is we get them from everywhere. We get them from restaurants. They show up at our gate. We get them from the sheriff's department, the police department, the hospital. I've had private doctors in Putnam call me personally to settle someone in. I get calls from churches, so we take them in from
All over.
everywhere. It's not just through the sheriff's department. So
And part of this issue is, and I'm trying not to just be overwhelmingly your fan, even though I am. I think part of this is that we need to understand is the ladies that are dealt with in this fashion, normally, before they came along, would have had to go to jail if they were in trouble, or they would have had to go to some institution. They didn't have a place to come in and coach them and help them and get them back in where they needed to be.
So that is something, Commissioner Adamczak mentioned $100 per room. Just so you know, that is not one person per room.
I get it.
We have 4 beds in most of the rooms and 6 in some.
All right, I want
So-
to tell you my personal experience. I grew up in this environment. My mother was abused. She had no place to go. 2 small children. She died young, 32 years of age, moved in with my dad, who was abusive. And my stepmother had no place to go. I left home because of that, because I was trying to be a defender of the family at 6'4" and weighed 135 pounds against a man 6'5", weighed almost 300 pounds. Doesn't work out that way sometimes. So I left home. I didn't know I was homeless. I slept in my station wagon. And I say that jokingly, I really did. And it was not so bad. I slept on people's couches, took showers wherever I could. But I swore that I would never enter down that road. And I never have. And I'm getting a little emotional right now, but I'm going to tell you, you can break the cycle. And I'm here to tell you that it can happen. And I'll preach it every day of my life. You don't have to. We don't play the hitty game around my house. It just doesn't work that way. Matter of fact, I'm scared of my wife. She's 4'10" and a half, but it's just not.
I believe she can take it.
I know she would, but it's just, why do you want to live in that environment when you don't have to and you can break that cycle? So I applaud you, Commissioner Adamczak. This is a great thing. It's easy to say, well, we got measurable responses or returns right now. We can make this happen. So thank you. And I just want to know where your clientele came. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Adamczak, before you sit down, Lori.
Yeah, I make a motion that we approve funding for Lee Conley House in the amount of $10,000, justified back quarterly by Ms. Lori or whoever the director is at the time, in the amount of $100 per room night, and I recommend that we pay that $10,000 up front.
Second.
Okay, we got a proper motion and a proper second, and everybody up here has a story, I'm sure. My wife Holly taught and coached for 34 years. You touch a lot of students in 34 years, and a lot of them, she coached girls volleyball, basketball, and it really hit her when our church prepared a meal for Lee Conley probably 10 years ago. At least one of her students was there. So we may take some criticism for this.
I'll take it. Give them my number.
We, some of us took criticism for not distributing the ARPA money to nonprofits, and I was one of those that did not agree with, I didn't want to do that. You were on the list, right? You came and spoke, many of you did. They're all very admirable organizations. This one, to me, is different. It just provides a service that nobody else does that I know of, and we'll get the bookkeeping taken care of and those measures that we need to satisfy our auditors. But the intangibles that y'all provide, you can't measure that in dollars and cents. You just really can't. So thank you. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
I appreciate all of
Okay.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move down to county attorney comments.
I didn't have anything.
County Administrator, I'm switching it up just a little bit.
No, sir, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner comments, we'll start with Commissioner Adamsack. Mr. Turner? Commissioner Harvey? Okay, and I have none also, other than we do have a 5:05 meeting this afternoon. I will open it up for public comment on miscellaneous items. Any individuals wish to make public comment on miscellaneous items? Okay, seeing none, we stand adjourned.